Welcome back to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of JTwJE.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. Guys, before we get started, please make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And also, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Spreaker, please give us 5 stars and also subscribe. I'm very thrilled because rock and orchestra and classical music combined are incredible. And there's a new project coming called Rock Me Amadeus that's coming to theaters in 2021. In fact, I have the co-creators of this new incredible musical. Please help me welcome soprano Alyson Cambridge, who has performed in countless venues around the world, including the Metropolitan Opera, the Kennedy Center, and London's Royal Albert Hall. And plus, please help me welcome guitar virtuoso Tony Bruno, who has worked with Delta Goodwin, Enrique Iglesias, and Rihanna. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Hey there.
All righty, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me. I really appreciate it. So let's get down to business. So when did you get interested in, each of you get interested in music, and how did that passion evolve into the desire of pursuing a career in the music industry?
Tony, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, mine's really funny. I have 2 older brothers, and my oldest brother was like in a band, and I was the punk youngest brother, 7 years younger. And I one day started jamming with his guitar player, and his guitar player said, "Your brother's really good for his age." And then, much to my older brother's disappointment, the guy Steve invited me to join the band. And I started playing with him, and my brother was so furious. But that was it. I was hooked. I was like, "Oh my god, people actually do this and make money!" So that was I think I was like 13 years old, maybe 12 or 13.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, I started playing music when I was really young. I started taking piano lessons when I was 4. But my career as an opera singer sort of actually began as a joke. In some ways, I was 12 years old, and I used to imitate any sort of singing voice that I heard on the radio, like you name it, pop, rock, jazz, whatever. My mom listened to a lot of opera when we were growing up, so I would imitate opera singers as a joke just to make my friends laugh. And our neighbor was over one day, and I was doing my opera voice, and she said, "Alyson, you know what? That's not half bad. Maybe you should start taking some voice lessons." And I was 12 years old. I walked into this first voice lesson. The woman just shook her head. She's like, "You're a kid." She's like, "Let's just hear this opera voice." And I did it. And she goes, "You're only 12? And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "You're not going to sing like Madonna or Whitney Houston or any of those people." She was like, "I want to train you to be an opera singer." And that's how it all happened. And I went to school for it. And then, and then I got to New York City like 17 years ago and started singing at the Metropolitan Opera and around the world. So it all started with an impersonation.
Awesome. Now, I'm very excited about Rock Me Amadeus. And can you please, guys, give me the origin story of Rock Me Amadeus and tell it to my audience?
Well, Tony, maybe you should go first, maybe, because you started with a similar show before. Yeah. And then I sort of joined forces with you a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So, do we mention? I guess it doesn't matter. Myself and Alyson were in a show called Rocktopia, but I was in it about a year and a half, maybe before you were. And when it started out, it was a little bit different, actually a lot different in terms of the way it was presented. For me, when I got into it, it was really a classical music show with fusions of rock in it. But most of the people on stage, most of the outfits and everything, it was very, very classical, very, I wouldn't say stuffy, but more in that classical world. And because of that, our demographic was definitely the same. So little by little, myself and the violin player, Máiréad Nesbitt, from the Celtic Women, she and I started, getting a little edgy and sort of doing our own thing and taking it over. And that's when kind of Alyson got in. And then by the time she arrived, we were already transforming into more of a rock show with classical and opera elements in it. And now what we're trying to do is, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. We want to balance it so that, like, this particular piece might be very opera heavy with moments of heavy rock in it, or it might be very rock or grunge or pop heavy with elements of classical music and opera in it, but not have a defined rule. No, it has to be this and it can't be that.
Right. I mean, when I became a part of that show, I remember just being so excited about it, just about the sort of concept in general. And I will say, to Tony's point, because I do come from the opera and the classical world, even when I was telling my sort of fellow classical musician colleagues, hey, I'm about to be in this show that fuses classical and rock, a lot of them frankly turned their noses up at me. And they thought, I don't know, are you sort of selling out? You're not going to be singing opera to the highest level. Did you really train all these years and sing all around the world to then go do this rock fusion classical show? And then here we are now 2 years later. And, we had some success with that show, but Tony and I really sort of put our brains together, and we thought, like what he was saying, we thought, wait, we can make this even edgier, even cooler. We can fuse all different genres. We don't have to limit it to just classic rock. We can put in more pop, grunge, maybe even some hip hop might work its way in there. But it's such a collaborative effort with everybody that's in the cast. And so the things that we're doing now, it's cool, it's edgy. And the music industry in both, but in classical and non, has changed so much. Yeah. And I think everybody is wanting to do something different, and this breaks the rules, and it challenges people like to hear and think about music in a different way. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm so glad you brought up Rocktopia, because I was like saying, wait a minute, is this like Rocktopia, but a spin-off of Rocktopia? And like, I'm glad that you guys are combined, that you guys have taken the foundations of Rocktopia, but expand upon it. And so there are some similarities and differences between both shows.
Yes. I mean, the truth is, like, while we were in the show together, when Alyson first came in, I thought she and I would never hit it off as friends, because she's from a world that I don't understand. And I mean, just look at her. She walks in all stoic and everything. And you're like, oh my God, this one, But we ended up becoming really good buds. And then when we started talking about stuff, like anything else, and this is not throwing mud at someone, but you realize what's good and what's bad about something. And we immediately realized what didn't work in that show, but they continued to do it, even though we, sometimes try to appeal to them and say, hey, what about this? What about that? Anyway, so when the time came when we realized we were going to do this, it was clear what we were going to do, more important, what we weren't going to do. Mm-hmm. So it was that's why it's so easy for us to start moving forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I just want to let you know that on October 9th, the Broadway League suspended ticket sales for Broadway performances through May 30th, 2021. So how has Rock Me Amadeus prepared for Broadway and off-Broadway's reopening? And is there a possibility, if God forbid, and I hope not this happens, but if God forbid the Broadway closure extends, has it hit your minds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's something that we've been thinking about. And it's actually one of the reasons why we intentionally sort of left our initial press release somewhat ambiguous and just sort of said, the shows will be coming in summer of 2021 and not with a specific theater or opening date, because the truth of the matter is the whole pandemic, everything with COVID, it changes month to month and day to day. I will say that I'm encouraged by the news that we got today, that it's looking like there will be at least one, if not two vaccines sort of available, hopefully, by the time spring rolls around. And when just a month ago, I think a lot of us were prepared to be in this state perhaps until next fall. Even the announcement that the Olympics are planning to go ahead in July 2021. That I think is that's a really big announcement, because for a show like ours, where we could be at a Broadway theater, or we could also be at like an outdoor music festival. And so that's something that we've been looking at as well, because those sorts of things are likely to open up and be ready for the public to access before some of the closed-in theaters. So we've been prepared and looking at all different options, for sure.
This is a perfect timeline for us, because we're doing, like, if we were to be putting a show together while there were venues available, we'd probably be, a little bit more hasty in our decisions just to try and get the thing out there.
Right.
You know, so now that we've got, I mean, Fauci said yesterday things won't get back to a normal life till the second or third quarter of next year, which isn't bad. That brings us to kind of right where we are now.
Right.
And that gives me and Alyson that amount of time. It's almost like, okay, you know what? We know exactly how much time we have to do what we're going to do. So now we're putting together the music, putting together these little videos and vignettes that we're going to be putting out, you know, for social media and people to see. Plus, it gives us a good idea of what works and what, you know, what doesn't work. And then in a year's time, we'll hopefully have built up a huge fan base because of that. And then just take those individual 3-minute pieces and inflate them on steroids to 6-minute pieces and have a show.
And one of the cool things about all of this, about sort of, in a way, it's sort of a blessing in disguise that we have this extra time, is what Tony said, is we're able to really interact with our audiences before we get to the stage. And so some of these musical pieces that we're putting out, and all of them are going to be original, by the way. So while there was some, yes, strong influence from Rocktopia, all of the things that we're doing in Rock Me Amadeus, it's original creations from Tony and I and the rest of the cast collaborating. But we also get to have input from our audience who might come up with a mashup song suggestion that we hadn't even thought of, you know? So that's one of the really cool things about sort of being out there in the social media universe and in this space right now before we hit the stage.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. But I would love to hear a deep dive into the arrangement process, because how have you and your team been able to merge not just these rock classics and opera classics and orchestral pieces, but you also mentioned some hip hop and pop. How have you, can you share that arrangement process? Because I'm very intrigued by it.
So am I. We'll let you know when we figure it out. I mean, it's funny. I think it really starts with people just throwing out suggestions. And because I'm not very, you know, literate in opera, I'm more literate in classical music than I am opera. So we'll just throw songs out there, you know, like ideas. And then somehow, you know, like all of a sudden, wait, what did you just say? This song? Oh my God. This and that song have very similar chord structures and similar meanings or similar sentiments or similar mood. But they have to have a tapestry somewhere in there. It can't just be like, well, this song would sound cool with that song for no apparent reason. So it's really about people making suggestions and then looking at them and saying, hold on a second, this and this would be amazing together. And then, of course, finding a way to do it. And the ironic thing is, I thought in the beginning that the actual heavy lifting was going to be the hard part, like okay, now I got to do it. Now I got to put the music together. Now that we've made a decision. But when you find the right two songs, it almost writes itself. You know, because each song has, you got to remember, we're dealing with an audience that has a limited vocabulary of pretty much all this, you know, including classic rock and hip hop. So what do? You find the most recognizable part of the song, like the iconic part of an iconic song. You definitely use that, and you work backwards into parts of it that maybe aren't as popular, but you definitely start with that. So it's like a collection of hits within an arrangement.
Right.
That's incredible. And I was looking over the cast, and you guys have some pretty heavy hitters like Dee Snider. And I was looking at, you have Broadway veterans, you have Billboard superstars, reality TV alums. So how did you and your team put together this ensemble?
Well, I really all happened very organically. I will say there are a lot of the cast members who were a part of Rocktopia either on Broadway or when we were touring. But I think something sort of when we knew that show was sort of coming to a close, and then when Tony and I began working in earnest on producing and creating Rock Me Amadeus, our guts told us, like, look, we know we have these really talented people that gelled so well in this other show. Let's see who would be willing and interested to move forward with a new show. And very happily, everybody said yes, that was interested and available. And like you said, it's a lot of heavy hitters. Tony Vincent is certainly very well known in the Broadway world. We have Chloe Lowry from Trans-Siberian Orchestra. You mentioned Dee. Toby Rand, Kia Warren are incredible vocalists. we actually have a new opera singer who was not part of the other show, Victor Ryan Robertson, who's just an incredible operatic tenor, but also was in 3 Mo tenors and can do lots of like pop and jazz stuff as well. And then we have a great band, and Luis Guzman, who's played with lots of amazing artists, and Brian Delaney, Henry Aronson, who's been on Broadway a lot. And then of course we have Máiréad Nesbitt, who's just, she's our little Irish fairy princess, virtuosic violinist, who's just amazing. And
on my side too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
It's a truly all-star cast. I know sometimes a lot of people say that, but this is actually the truth. Like everybody is a star in their own right. And it's kind of just like this amazing electric energy when everybody comes together. I will say speaking about arrangements, we have our first music video coming out this week. And the very first time I heard the track, without even having the vocalists on the track yet, I got goosebumps. And then when people started putting their vocals into it, I was like, this is so cool. It got me so excited. And so, I don't know, in case you couldn't tell, we're always we're excited to talk about the show because it's a lot of stuff.
I can sense your excitement and I can sense your enthusiasm. And I was wondering, if you had the opportunity to cast more singers and musicians to join a show for future chapters, like who are your dream co-stars and how would they enhance Rock Me Amadeus?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, I will say this. When we did Rocktopia, we did have Pat Monahan from Train, as well as we had Robin Zander from Cheap Trick and Dee, of course. But I will say that Pat, for too many reasons to mention, is such a great fit for this, mostly because he's, consummate professional. He's an amazing singer, but he's also an incredible hang. And that's equally as important to me and Alyson, and actually the whole cast, as your individual talent, because he's such a cut up and he's a great dude. So I would love to get him back. I'd love to get Robin back too. We did such cool pieces with those guys. I don't know if you saw any of that stuff, but like in those pieces, I basically put those arrangements together, so I don't want to see them go to waste. But in terms of new people, God, I mean, there's just too many to mention. Obviously, it would be incredible to have someone that no one would expect to do it in a million years. Like I used to work with Joan Jett, and I would love to have her do it.
She'd be fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I second those choices. I don't know. I just like it's a really tough question. I would be interested to work with anybody sort of very outside the box who they themselves would be excited to be a part of the show because it's so different than anything that they've done, so they'd be just excited to have fun with the show. I think that was maybe one of my favorite parts about like working with Dee Snider, for example, was he was so game for whatever we were doing, whether it was rock or classical. And so like I remember there was a song we were doing a duet and it's sung in Italian opera. And like Dee Snider came out on stage and sang Italian opera with me. Like,
whoa.
Yes. Yeah. And it was just, I think that's another thing about the show that we want to make sure we sort of like capitalize on is the unexpected factor, the surprise and wow factor, as well as the nostalgia factor, so it's going to be these like familiar songs, but like with a twist and like, wait, did I just hear Dee Snider sing opera? Yes, I did. Wow.
That's incredible.
Even to the point of like, we did have one comedic moment in the last show that was around Dee, and we immediately realized we need more of those in the show because people love that, especially in the middle of a fairly long, I'm going to say it's super long, but it's a long musical experience. It's just like an intermission when something happens that all of a sudden there's a different mood, laughter, and like it really has an impact as long as you don't overdo it. But you throw one or two of these in there and it's great. And Dee was definitely the subject of our biggest laugh, not at his expense, but in one of his arrangements last time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So you told me, or earlier you guys told me that you are getting ready to amp up the social media campaign. And do you hope that it's going to connect with fans and potential show goers?
Well, our whole goal with social media is to let them get to know who we are as a show, and get to know the individual cast members, and give these hints and flavors of what you can expect to hear and see in the show musically. So, like, for example, we've taken a lot of time in crafting like our first music video, and that we wanted it to not be sort of, I don't know, a typical music video where we're playing characters or it's completely out of reality. We wanted to show a sense of like who we are actually in real life while still representing the song. Tony and I think I can say what the first single is. It's a mashup of the Police's Roxanne with the habanera from the opera Carmen by Bizet.
Ooh, that is a good combination. I cannot wait to listen to that.
And so we have a storyline, and it's definitely about, and we decided to split the male part into two vocalists. So we have Toby Rand and Tony Vincent as the lead male vocalist, sort of fighting over the Carmen/Roxanne character, who's myself. And so we don't want to take it too far into the abstract. So there are elements like you're going to see who Tony Vincent is in this video. You're going to get a sense of who Toby Rand is, who Alyson Cambridge is, while at the same time still giving you like a cool visual music video experience, and of course getting to know the song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I have two more questions. So why should my audience look forward to Rock Me Amadeus?
It's going to be a great, well, let's put it this way. When you see it live, it's going to be probably your best night out. But even what we're putting out now are videos, which are going to be on the short side, which is great for two reasons. Number one, we can't really get too long in social media because people have an attention span, the flash cube, so they just go to the next thing. But when they do fall in love with it, they're going to see the bigger version of it. But in terms of why they should see it, because it's going to embody all the stuff music they've ever grown up with, plus expose them to music they kind of know, but never really, got a chance to become really close to. And now we're going to be giving them a reason to come close to it, because it's going to be in the middle of something that they've loved for years. And like, oh my God, I had no idea this song was so much like that song in terms of the meaning of it and stuff like that. So I think they'll get an education as well as go home with a giant smile on their face.
Yeah, the Rock Me Amadeus, it is, I've said this before, I've called it like orgasms for your ear. And it really, it's one, oh my gosh, and chills moment, sort of like one after the next. And it just makes you feel good. And I feel like that is exactly what this world needs right now, is a show that is just going to make you feel good and just feel different emotions. And this show definitely does that. With all these musical components. And like I said before, the performances, everybody is just so incredible and so dedicated to what they're doing. And then, yes, you'll see them in videos, but then to see the show live on stage, it's going to be really exciting. And I can't wait for fans to see it.
Awesome. So guys, now that my audience is familiar with Rock Me Amadeus, where can they connect with you so they can follow your updates?
You can find us on social media on Instagram at Rock Me Amadeus Live. Our handle is the same on Facebook as well, Rock Me Amadeus Live. And our website is www.rockmeamadeuslive.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. So guys, to download more episodes of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, head to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. Just type in Jake's Take and then just type in Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Once again, Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR, and then add podcast to it. I've had some incredible interviews this year. I've had some Big Brother royalty. I've had some American Idol. I had America's Got Talent winner, Brandon Leak. I had Christina Ray. I had so many incredible voices, and even some comedians too, like Vicky Barbalock as well. So you guys can check out those episodes. And also, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Head to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And once again, type in Jacob Elyachar, Jacob Elyachar. Once again, Jacob Elyachar, Jacob Elyachar. And finally, for all my takes on Broadway and music and The Masked Singer, America's Got Talent, head to jakes-take.com. Once again, jakes-take.com. Alyson and Tony, Rock Me Amadeus. I am so freaking excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
And I have a feel, and I cannot wait for that first single, and I cannot wait to hear the rest of that production. And guys, thank you so much for taking time on your schedule to speak with me. And also to my listeners and to my viewers, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, have a great one. Bye.